The next class we're going to talk about today is the Showmanship at the AQHA Select World 2019. And I'm here with Robin, the trainer of Lena Vollmer, and she was the world champion. Tell us a little bit about how you prepare your handler, before getting here to perform at this level.
Thank you, Gino. This is Robin Frid, and let's get one thing really straight here. Robin Frid is not the trainer of this class. My wife, Jenny Jordan, is actually the professional in our business for the Showmanship, and she was not able to be here with us today, so I am only filling in for her. So please understand that this credit on this class and this coaching goes to my wife, Jenny, definitely not to me. I do watch a lot of the Showmanship preparation and the practice, and at times I do get involved a little bit, but certainly not to her level. It's wonderful, Gino, now that AQHA has kind of stepped forward and being leaders in the industry. They're giving us these patterns quite a ways out from our world shows. I don't remember exactly with this one. Let's say it was probably here. We probably had it a week or so before we actually went to the event. So Jenny and Lena were able to discuss the maneuvers within the pattern and what the harder things for her were going to be. I know at home we practice the basics of showmanship and handling that horse all the time. And Jenny is so specific on the basics of correct showmanship. We read the rule book, we kind of see what the definition of the class is. If you look through that rule book, it talks about a well-conditioned horse. It talks about a happy horse. It talks about a handler's ability to communicate with that horse. And I think we're going to see that throughout this pattern today.
Robin, one thing I did note when I was watching her run was, her poise and her confidence. How do you get your handler to have such confidence?
That's just a lot of repetition, Gino. And Jenny said at one time during a clinic, and I always steal her line, in that this is a formal interview. And this is a formal interview between you and the judge. I'm very aware that often at our shows anymore, you might not be showing to the judge, but this is probably the closest you're ever going to get to them, with the exception of maybe the halter class, where they're really going to see your face 100% right in front of them. And confidence wins, confidence sells. And Jenny works tirelessly on presenting that confident walk, confident trot, how they stand poised at that start cone. It's just endless practice and hours. Lena practices, having a confident run. Lena runs every single day in the arena, in the dirt, at her house at home. Every single day, 365 days of the year.
Wow, that just goes to show you what it takes to be a world champion. And Robin, so when you and Jenny and Lena looked at the pattern and you saw there were maneuvers that were going to be difficult for her. When I watched the pattern, I didn't even notice that there were maneuvers she was struggling with. Were there some?
There were maneuvers that were slightly imperfect, and we're going to see those. But there wasn't anything that there was nothing that she is not used to practicing. Let's put it that way. However, she did have trouble with a couple little things. As we go through our pattern and kind of look at it, you're going to notice that they have to back, kind of weaving through a set of cones. And a lot of handlers had some trouble with that in this class. And again, that is something not that specific, but they practice for that week. They practice backing through cones and creating different shapes and having the ability to steer her horse backwards as well as steer her horse forward. They would kind of back through maybe a figure eight and then come back and walk that same shape, and just not do it over and over where they were pushing the horse, but do it enough where she could back through those cones like they didn't even exist. And you're going to see she actually had a little fault in there once we move forward and watch the pattern. But she was able to sell it with confidence, and that's what it is. It's salesmanship. You've got to show your top things that you're great at, and you've got to hide your problems from your judge. And I think that Lena had the ability to do that today.
Excellent, Robin. So what do you think? We'll just go through the pattern?
I think let's go through the pattern and let everyone kind of see it, and we'll just discuss each maneuver that was asked for, and then we can come back and we can talk about it with a little bit more in depth while we watch it again. So this pattern actually starts a little bit forward on the cones, and the first maneuver is backing through the cones, kind of in a little bit of a zigzag move. Then she's going to walk forward to where she started, trot, and she's going to trot a corner and stop. Our next maneuver is 1.5 pivots. So that's going to have her facing away from our judge. Our next maneuver, she has to back. Then we have a 180-degree turn, walk and stop. Then we have our setup. And following our setup, we'll have our inspection. So to complete our pattern, we have a 90-degree pivot, a trot, and then stop. And after the stop, the pattern is complete. So going back and just talking about this pattern a little bit more in depth, at the start cone, we have Lena there, and she is, standing with a lot of poise. She has to wait a little bit extra long. The one thing that I really like is she does not just stand there staring at the judge the entire time. If you notice, she checks her horse to make sure that he hasn't moved around or moved anything that she wasn't able to feel. And this class is your ability to show a horse at halter. And it's important when you're showing in the halter that your horse stands flat-footed and doesn't move around. And if you notice, Lena just kind of checks that. As she does, you're going to see later in her inspection, she checks her horse to make sure, she checks his feet to make sure nothing has moved. Obviously, it's going to be a fault if your horse moves during a setup, but it's an even worse fault if you don't fix it.
Exactly, and she's just showing her connection with that horse, even at the cone. Hey, Robin, let's just talk about this back. Very interesting. It's we've seen it a couple times this year, and talk about what you expected out of the back and how you presented it.
So in a perfect world, we would like them to be completely balanced when they go through the dead center of these cones. And we're going to notice that Lena does not stay perfectly centered on the cone. So is that a fault? No, it's not a fault at all. But I still feel like her back was a credit-earning situation. But it could have been a little bit better had she been dead centered. Now, why was it credit-earning? A couple of things. One, the cadence and the fluidness of that back was excellent. If you notice, that horse never faltered in his footfall one single time, the whole time he came back.
So the fastest is not the best?
Absolutely not. It really does not have anything to do about the speed. The speed is a degree of difficulty, and we like to have degree of difficulty, no doubt. So with our new score system that goes to a 3, let's say she was dead center on those cones and had backed with that fluidness with a high rate of speed. She could have possibly been into a +3 or a +2.5. I have no idea how the judges scored her on this maneuver. It doesn't matter. What I loved was that cadence and fluid, and that is the number one thing that we're going to focus on. Not all horses can back fast. You have to back the speed that your horse can comfortably back up, nice and cadenced and square. And those are all words that we saw right there.
Smooth. And she was always in time with her horse, I noticed.
And if you notice, she always had a connection to him as well. At times this is just a personal opinion, but that's kind of what we're after, and this is our personal opinions. You'll have, a big long droop in your lead, and that to me is not a true connection. If you see, she had a little bit of a connection to his head, and what was great was she always had maintained the same distance away from her horse. Now when she walked, I loved how she walked forward, just confidence, happy. If you look, her horse's ears are up, he's happy, he's really enjoying his job.
And I really liked her connection at the stop, nice and straight to that judge.
And you know what else is what made this a winning world champion kind of run is in almost all aspects, everything is complete. She started with her horse square. She had a fluid backup. She stopped with her horse underneath of itself in square. Was it set up squarely? No, that's not what I'm saying. But its feet were underneath of itself in square. When there's a beginning and an ending to every single maneuver, she's never leaving anything to where you can think she made a mistake. As she gets into her pivot, notice when you could see that horse coming, face on you, how square his body was, how straight his body is. He's got really good cadence footfall, and there's that finish again where she completed it with that right front foot. It wasn't perfectly square underneath of him, but it was pretty darn close.
So do you focus on the head, the neck, and the spine, how straight it is?
100%. 100%. All the time, every time they pivot, in practice and in show.
But also in the run and the stop, even the walk up to this judge.
We want that horse to stay perfectly in line and square. It's almost like their body has a 2x4 running through it. I mean, that's how straight we would love for that horse's body.
And you could really see this throughout her pattern.
You could. I didn't love when she did her backup and she wasn't perfectly centered. As she goes to her setup, the one thing, it's really hard to tell from this angle, but that right hind looks like it could have been a little bit more square. And again, from this angle, and when I actually watched the pattern live, I was on this exact same angle. I wondered if it was set up square. I do trust my handler, though, and when she came out and we talked about it later, she's told me it was close enough.
How do you balance speed and precision of a setup with your handler?
Precision is number one. Precision is number one, 100%. It has to be correct. And our rule book says that horse has to be set up squarely. So, again, speed is degree of difficulty. In any maneuver that we do, the speed is the degree of difficulty. Correctness must come first. The speed comes second. And if you noticed in her setup, it wasn't the fastest setup in the world. She did have to make a couple of moves to get, obviously, his front feet where she wanted them, and we can't see them from this angle. But she made sure that his feet were set up squarely and correctly before she went to her inspection. And, is that a huge, high credit-earning maneuver that we just saw? Probably not, but it was correct.
Yeah, she did a great job. I actually watched this run. I was on the other side of the arena, and it was very square. So she took her time. I'd like to see that.
And then as she moves forward, her inspection was really wonderful. Confidence. She's checking her horse every single time that she crosses over, looking back at the judge. She's got a smile on her face. To me, her inspection was an extremely large part to the win of this class. I felt that her backup and the cadence she had in that backup, and her inspection and her confidence, her poise, her composure in the inspection, those were the two things that I felt really truly set her above the rest of the class. Her 90 at the end, it was not absolutely perfect. She did not close it with the right front foot quite as good as I would have liked. But again, it was close. It was correct. Had she taken that extra step to square up that right front, would I have liked it more? Possibly. Hard to tell. But I still feel it was a credit-earning maneuver, no doubt. Trotting up to her stop at the end, she stopped. Her horse held his feet in the ground. You'll see that he kind of moves his body around a little bit, and that's one other spot that I'm not totally in love with this pattern. But we're getting extremely picky at this point. Again, what I loved and what made this that winning run was everything was perfectly correct all of the time. And when she could add degree of difficulty with a little bit more speed and precision, she did.
Robin, one of the things that I see in showmanship is a person's personality. Do you let your students really their own personality come out in their pattern?
That's an interesting question. I would say that 100% we try to do that. The key is someone who is a positive and a confident, you've heard me say that word a lot, person is going to excel in this type of a class. Positivity, confidence, composure are what really sell. A happy person makes a happy judge. So Lena is, there's no one that doesn't like Lena Vollmer. I mean, she is just a wonderful human being, and she always has a positive outlook on everything she does every single day, no matter what it is. And I think that comes out in how she's presenting herself in this class. So do we let them have their own personality? Yes.
So as a trainer of multiple Congress and world champion showmanship handlers, what could we leave our audience with today?
The number one thing for me in the showmanship is as the handler, confidence sells. And I've said it multiple times. I'll say it over and over until people understand. Confidence sells. This is the one time you are face-to-face with that judge in the show pen. It is a formal interview between the two of you. And if I think of two people walking into an interview with me, the person that walks in with that strong look, shakes my hand, they want the job that I'm fixing to offer them, versus the person that walks in, maybe has their head down, walks a little bit slower. Which one are you going to buy? Which one are you going to hire? So to me, that confidence and the correctness and the precision of doing things right every single time, those are the two things that I want to leave everybody with that can make you a winner in this class.
Thank you, Robin, and congratulations to you, your team, and Lena.
Thank you, Gino.